Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo. Those of you who don't know me, I pride myself in being a legal jurist of sorts. And today I'm privileged and honored to be hosting one of my friends, one of the young brains of this country, the incredible Professor Dr. Shadat, Dean of Faculty of Law, Gulu University, a man of no small accolades. He's a man who has distinguished himself in the legal profession. He's well read, well quoted in and around the world. We're going to discuss something that is of extreme interest to this country because there are many people who have been caught up, bamboozled because of the challenges that have been propounded by National Council for Higher Education. And as a man who is known to have studied in UK, he's well conversant with Cambridge because Cambridge has this relationship with National Council of Higher Education in Uganda in terms of accrediting and also ensuring quality of education in the legal, perhaps not legal, but in terms of the entire universities of this country. And I'm sure they are some of those people who contribute in what they call YBO metrics in terms of determining the leverage of a university in terms of its performance. So today I am honored and privileged to have you, Dr. Shadat, and I will be quick to ask Dr. Professor Shadat, tell us, people are running crazy, people are worried, people seem to be confused. They seem to not understand what is happening. They think their degrees are depleted, they are old, they are archaic, they have lost value, they're nugatory in law. What do you have to say in response to that?
Dear viewers, I salute you with the best salutation chosen by Allah. May mercy and peace be upon you. First and foremost, in my prognosis, I made some prognosis regarding academia and curriculum, since I was a member or whereby they call us on different issues regarding National Council. First and foremost, the discourse surrounding the academia, surrounding curriculums in Uganda was ignited. That social hysteria that ignited the social barometer was set by one of the students who had applied to UK for master's program. Upon submitting his application, the Embassy of UK, in conjunction with the British Council of Education, they had to inquire from National Council of Higher Education in Uganda whether her first degree had been accredited. Unfortunately, a member of the National Council submitted that the course had not been accredited or had expired. So it is that one that after that, because of the viral information, because of the media, it spread. So that's how it ignited from. My question should be known that I've heard from the Professor Nawang of Makerere. I know Makerere has been around for the last 100 years. And as I talk now, Makerere has got around 50 courses. Some of them are expired, some of them were merged. The irony is that those that were merged have not been updated on the system. They don't have a tracking system to find out which courses have expired. So now there are courses, especially for surgery, medicine and surgery, which expired in 2015, and some of the students have even graduated. So that means there is a lacuna that has to be handled. We know in Uganda we have around 52 universities. Among them we have Makerere University, we have Mbara University of School and Technology, we have MUBS, we have Busitema, we have Muni University, we have Kaba University, we have Mountains of the Moon, we have Gulu University, we have Kampala University, we have Bugema University, Isabati University, Uganda Management Institute, we have Kampala International University, we have Chambogo, we have Mutesa One University, we have Nkumba University, we have Ndege University, Victoria University, and UC University. There are so many others, but I've tried to look at these ones that most people, even Uganda Matters University.
And King Caesar.
And King Caesar. The problem is, some of these universities are established without having a background of a university. First and foremost, they don't have departments. If we are talking about accreditation, review of programs, these are done through departments. You'd find some universities, especially private institutions, the issue of department is more of a ceremony. Now, until the National Council of Education commands all universities to have departments, the issue of curriculum will never be resolved. We need to develop structures. When we develop structures, then we shall be having a clear manifestation. Then also what we need to promote our people. Because when staff are not motivated, especially the senior lecturer, the professors, where promotion is on tribal, promotion of staff is based on friendship, not on credibility, not on a documental evidence that a person has to do ABCD to be promoted. Now, most of the staff in academia are demotivated. The other position that the government has been cutting the budget of universities. And this cut of universities has impeded the rapid progress on curriculum review. And this one is seen during COVID and post-COVID. The budget for universities has been cut. And this one has left most of the universities limping, unable to implement such reviews. And remember, as we talk about reviews, COVID itself, the pandemic, impeded many of the schools, the universities like IU, Ogul and others that would have programmed the review earlier. But because of the pandemic, where almost 3 years, universities were not in operation. So how do you expect this university to be at the best speed when COVID itself was an issue that was impeding the entire global education?
Right.
The other position you could also think about, National Council itself is understaffed. Remember, the chairman of the National Council of Education, Eli Katunguka, has got over 52 courses of Chambogo unaccredited. Others have argued that a chairman to be a vice chancellor at times brings a conflict when it comes to issues of accreditation. Maybe in the procedure, we need to learn to see that a person who becomes the chairman of National Council can no longer be a vice chancellor, so that when challenges come, he does not sit in a conflict of interest. Other people have argued that legal litigation might commence, like the chairman of the Uganda Law Society, the president of the Uganda Law Society. I think even if litigation was to commence, let us give the history of the Hillsborough disaster, where Liverpool had a match with Nottingham Forest. During that time, we know what happened. The police breached the duty of care. Around 100,000 people passed on at Hillsborough disaster. Many people died. What happened? Lord Taylor put up an inquiry to investigate what was the cause of the disaster. And in his report, he found out the police had made or had breached health and safety. And through the investigation and the inquiry by Lord Taylor, the government of UK came up with a new structure. Nobody could enter any match standing. Everybody had to enter a match when there is a seat. The number of people to enter were calculated. The police were put before people enter to avoid the commotion and stampede. And if now we know these challenges, then National Council learns from the way UK stepped. Then they say, okay, what have we learned? After that, we know that many people came for compensation, for litigation. The House of Lords said yes, but they put up a threshold that for you to claim, you should be under love and affection. The person you saw who died at Hillsborough should have been your wife, your daughter or son, or your parents. This limited the compensation. Now what do I mean? Even if we have these challenges, and others are coming up to say litigation. The question would be, the courts might close what I call floodgates, and then you don't get any solution. So do not think about litigation. Africans should learn that the framers of the Constitution under Article 1261D, they knew that at times you can solve problems using inquisitorial approach, not adversarial.
Right.
The irony here in Uganda, people think that everything should go through litigation. We can use inquisitorial approach through mediation, arbitration, where we can say where do we go wrong, and we can solve this thing amicably together.
Right.
And also the government now, I know UNUSA, Uganda National Students Association, met the president and the first lady on the same. But what I should tell you, the professor, director of National Council, Professor Miracle, has said all universities, before the program expires, they should consult National Council, the update before expiry. Secondly, he has also said that students, the postgraduates, and the students should not panic. Since National Council is a Ugandan body, are you clear? And they control education in Uganda. Uganda is a republic, independent and a sovereign state.
Professor,
do not worry so much about Cambridge, because I have heard discussing about Cambridge, because Cambridge is in UK. What you should more focus on, what do we have the mandate as a Uganda? Yes. Can we solve this problem? The answer is yes. The issue of Cambridge should not be a discourse, because when you go to UK and you come back, for you to be taken as a graduate, as an uneducated person, you go through the different procedures. One, you have to go to UNEB to get your O-level and A-level. Then you go to National Council. And when you go to UNEB, you pay 300 for A-level, 300 for O-level. You pay 300 for first degree, 300 for masters, 400 for the PhD. Even when you study abroad, when you come back, your documents have to be equated. And the equating can take almost a year in order to be considered that you're educated. So the question is, when England also investigates, there is no problem. It's a question of balance and the quality of education. People should not be in a panic mode.
That's what I was saying, Professor, in my article that I sent out to the media, the reflection of perhaps debunking of the education system, some kind of decolonization of our education system. And I was amazed that at the ignorance of the populace, that people were actually in arms and were in panic mood. Because one thing they fail to understand is, like you rightly say, that Uganda is an independent institution or country for that purpose, and therefore, by virtue of National Council having its mandate to operate and regularize its own activities, it would do that under its mandate. What National Council is saying is that, listen, you are accredited with us, we have no problem with that. But for purpose of those who want to go and study out, there is a standard that is required of you. It's very simple, very simple. I mean, we have students, for example, who study from Sudan or other countries, and then they come here because they want to practice law, and they still take them back to LLB to do certain core subjects, I'll give an example. There are students, for example, who are trying to go to Kenya to do the bar course from Kenya Law School. And one of the requirements was they needed to have done mercantile law. And most schools here don't teach mercantile law.
Even employment rights comparison, even law school.
You see, so you had to adapt and change and started teaching mercantile law. So some of the things, it's a question of accreditation and aligning yourself with international standards. Perhaps the bigger question I would ask myself is, I know I'm a fan of so many universities of this country because I moonlight in quite a number of them. Although I am also mindful that at the level of ignorance that is exhibited by many people, even at university standards, that you begin to wonder whether or not these universities are not simply what you want to say maybe upgraded high school of sorts, rather than universities of sorts. People can't make a distinction between departments, for example, and even a faculty, or perhaps a faculty and even a school. For example, in Makerere we have a school of law. I don't know whether there are other schools of law. There's a distinction between a faculty and a school of law. So some of these things lose debate when you are ignorant of some of the basic things that are required of you when you begin to understand the grips of the whole problem. So now, listen, viewers, I think what the professor is saying is right, and I said right from the word go. There is no use to panic. There is no reason to panic. The whole thing you have to understand is that accreditation is important in terms of aligning your education system with other institutions abroad. But the bigger question now is, Professor, what do you talk about decolonization of the education system? Because most of the education system that we have is an offshoot or a grafting system of a replication of the Order in Council and like. What's your comment about that? Because people are saying, when are we going to navigate from these old archaic laws and get our own laws and traditions? That's question number one. Question number two, how about embracing law that resonates with what they call, I'm a fan of what they call rigor realism. People like Oliver Justice Wendell Holmes, who argue that wanting to become a lawyer is divinely inspired. The resonance of the law that has taken place, things like cyber law and security, things like forensic law, things like oil law and gas, things like sports law, things like fashion and design. All these are new groundbreaking areas that many faculties don't seem to know and comprehend. We're still stuck on the old archaic law. What is your comment about that, Professor?
Before I go to the what I call academic geopolitics internationally, something that should also be discussed. We have what we call the political terrain, like in Makerere. We know that most schools have become independent, but like the School of Engineering, the business school, but you find the law school has not been given a chance to be independent. For almost 9 years, we had acting dean. Even now, we have acting dean, deputy dean. Now, when people are in acting position, at times they are less vocal to raise some of the bar or to raise some of the issues pertaining to their faculties. Makerere now, Professor Noangwa, should now give independent position of the law school in Makerere. Let it be independent. Let the dean be a dean, not acting. Because we had the last one, almost 9 years, acting dean. Now we have the second one, both of them, the dean and the deputy acting. When people are in acting position, the people on top, whenever they challenge them, they just want to dismiss them, which is also another mechanism that impedes progress of curriculum. So the issue of politics, where at times a dean could be very good, but the person on top, because he doesn't like that dean, and then even if that dean develops some programs, you do find management, maybe Senate Council, at times do not want to expedite such courses in order to destroy the reputation of the other dean. Unless now we talk about collegiality. We think about collegiality, that a university is a union of different thoughts, theologies, where people amalgamate to learn from one another. But when you come to university with utopia mind, that you are the best, others don't understand, that's where we have got problems. There are people who think they are philosophers and they are the gurus of academia. No, in a university you learn from one another. A university is about collegiality and working together. And also you also mentioned issues of faculties. I remember as the General Secretary of the Law Deans, I called upon all the law deans in Uganda and I said the little a university could have is 3 departments. Others will say before, but there are some universities with no faculties at all. Now the National Council should make clear that before any universities are created, they should adduce faculty structure, because that's where the challenges comes from. And also, since the director of National Council is going to be calling universities, my appeal is let her call deans of faculties, because that is the center of preparation of curriculum. Now, leaving Uganda, let us go to decolonization. We know that Africa got independence, but not independent. Why? That even those who fought for independence, like Kwame Nkrumah, were killed and their bodies were burned. The West made sure that they leave us with ambassadors within the states. That explains in West Africa, Guinea-Bissau, Chad, Guinea-Konoa, we go to areas of France colony like Rwanda and others. They left us with what called ambassadors. And also they made sure that we don't move with the dynamics of the country. For example, in China, students are learning vocational centers to how to make vehicles ABCD. In Uganda, we had Chambogo University for Technical. These vocational centers were centers of education. But now for us, we assume that anybody to be educated should go to university. In Europe, England, in America, vocational centers have become a center of economic growth, a center of engineering, a center of expertise. You find that the denial of the abolition of most vocational centers to convert them into universities was one of an IMF order, which was also another set of decolonization. We should also understand the West could not allow us to deliver on their space. Why? They need to supply all of their equipment to us, their computers to us, their materials to us. So when you go to the place of their academia level, then you cannot purchase their products. So we are talking, as Dr. Lubogo said, we are living under what we call new colonial education system. We think we are independent, but we are not. Why can't we also have courses in local languages?
Right.
The constitution should be in local languages so that people can understand. So we have so many languages, even on the website of the National Council, so that people can understand which courses are created, which are not created. We need to work together, and Africans should embrace our African heritage in consumption with education development. A country with heritage develops better. That's why you don't find any country like Germany, France, England, they speak their local languages. It is high time we thought about a national language where we can even transform some of these materials to our own languages. That way we would become independent. If you are still using a foreign language, you are using colonial ideology, you are using colonial mandate, you are controlled economically, socially. It is the question that you used to be enslaved using the chains. Now you are controlled psychologically by the mind. I submit.
Right, and what you're saying, Professor, is right. I think most of the institutions, the universities we have really upgraded or high schools of sorts rather than universities, because universities are centers of intellectual excellence where we should see the best brain work, being manifested in the lives of individuals. And you rightly mentioned that the stereotyping of these institutions by the names also has caused a problem to our country. I'll give an example. In UK, where you studied, for example, there's London School of Economics, where people think it's only economics that is studied there, but you'll be amazed to understand that there's law, there's medicine, there's everything. And these are institutions that have grown over a period of time. I think it's high time our country comes up with that mandate of enhancing and strengthening institutions like Bokalasa, institutions like most of those, technical institutions, to give them that brand where they can be able to compete at the same level with any better university in terms of the world. And that is the biggest challenge that we have in this country. I think it's a question of decolonizing, first of all, our mind, but also blending, like you rightly say, the indigenous education, going back to the roots and standing. No country will promote or will even succeed in terms of what it does if it grafts its education in a foreign entity. I'll give you examples of countries that have actually manifested their excellence in every sphere of life. Russia, for example, the Asian giants, for example, China, for example, Japan, North Korea, almost all those countries that have grafted on their own, on their own, indigenous study, and that's how they've been able to rise to the occasion. So I think the better question for us, although much as we agree with that National Council is saying, my disagreement a little bit with them is this ideology of blending them and equating ourselves with Cambridge, because now Cambridge becomes a standard of right or wrong. I think it's high time that Uganda in itself creates a standard of right and wrong in terms of enhancing and creating a standard of quality. Because what we are debating here is not a question that the degrees that we are having are depleted. They're expired in the white man's eyes, but they are not expired in terms of the black man's eye or the Ugandan black man's eye, because of the relativity, the ability for it to function. Perhaps the better question perhaps to ask is, how ready are these institutions, the higher learning institutions in Uganda, how equipped are they in terms of strengthening and preparing the ordinary Ugandan in terms of survival? Professor?
I think some institutions have tried to prepare themselves, and at times, for example, they call the director for National Council of Education for guidance. Other universities have also put a policy, like now, all government universities, if a person does not have a PhD, they give them a leave of 5 years in order to be university lecturers. But also the other irony, I had a chance to have a diploma from New South Wales, that is in Australia, because we have a problem of people who get PhDs but they don't know how to impart knowledge. That is something that is needed.
Right.
That to be a lawyer is good, but to be a lecturer, you need to know the pedagogies of delivery.
Right.
And that is what is also lacking. The other position is, we need also to say that the lecturers are happier because of the finance. Now, we have what I call Iscariot doctrine. Within this Iscariot doctrine, the professors, the chancellors were given 20 million and above. And then they left out the lecturers, senior lecturers, graduate trainees. Now, sooner, I think, in 1 month or 2 months from now, we are going to see a strike. That division of lecturers without some motivation, where you pay the professors full, then the chancellors who made the deal are fully paid, then others suffer, is also another position. Because when there is no collegiality, when the trustee does not have the unification of others, he does not excel.
I heard,
that's the problem.
Professor, I heard from one of your friends whose name I've not mentioned, but you know her, she's a doctor, and you just met her before you came. She actually WhatsApped and said, can you imagine that teachers are striking, art teachers are striking, but they have a better salary than senior lecturers of law schools. Yes. Is that right, Professor?
It is right, because we have also have another challenge. The other big challenge is like in order to divide the unity or the trade union of the lecturers, they divided them between science and arts. But when you look, a person cannot do English very well, cannot do any science, must also learn English. Are you clear? We coexist.
Right.
That coexistence meant that the salary should be uniform.
True.
Now, there are two divided people in universities, also in second. Unless we go back to the root, that a lecturer at a university, whether he's teaching English, whether he's teaching history, whether he's teaching law,
Right.
they are all graduates.
Right.
They should not be segregated, and because they are taking science, you should be paid more or twice than art subject.
Right.
That one has also borne a conundrum,
Right.
which we need to clean up. The other position that we need also to work upon is to make sure that we promote vocational centers.
Right.
This will also help us rapidly.
Right.
We are seeing very many cuts on government budget when it comes to education. Military is supported 100%, other institutions are supported. And also now we have also learned, because when we are doing the reviews and the curriculum, some people travel to other universities. Now there is a total ban of government. There is no money to travel around. Because of the ban of that travesty, it has also impeded, because some people, before they do the curriculum, they go out, they benchmark. At times they have workshops and seminars, which have also been taken out of the budget as per the government. So in order to alleviate this appalling situation, we need financial support to the National Council. National Council does not even have 70 staff. Their budget is very little. Because Katunguka said even reviews of some of this program, we need between 60 to 70 millions. We don't have it. So it is understaffed, under budgeted. So as we talk and blame the National Council, what is the funding of National Council? What about the universities? And also these faculties should be mandated by National Council to have some finance that the Vice Chancellor does not take away. And this is for curriculum development.
Absolutely.
With that independence, we shall see progress, and also call upon the students not to panic. Because we have also had a challenge, which I start with the loadings. When you look at the National Council standard, a postgrad diploma should be 2 years. LDC is 1 year. That has been something being around what I call a constructive compliance. But when you come to that, it's also another scenario. As you are talking about programs, expired, but what about duration? Is another something. It is another situation that needs urgent attention too.
I know, and I talked about the issue of remuneration, like you rightly pointed out. I was extremely amazed when I got to learn a dean of a credible university, one of the most competing universities, faculty of law, was getting less than 3 million shillings per month. Less than 3 million shillings per month. There's a whole university secretary of a certain university, probably the biggest university, who, because he even failed to be given his money, started selling what do you call that, grasshopper and selling it. And because that's the only way you could tell you people, my life is in trouble. I can't even care for myself.
So the mind is not set.
The mind is not set. The redress is poor. How do you expect these people to really be at their best games in terms of performance? And we all know for purposes of thriving, we say you either cite, publish, or you either publish, be cited, or perish. Those preambles for those of you who are authors in terms of jurisprudence of sorts. You rightly pointed out many people who, even after them graduating in incredible and wonderful institutions, they have not even published their PhDs. In terms of publication, as it were, they have not even written. They have not gone down to write books so that they can be able to affect nations and even change jurisprudence. So most of the things that we have talked about in terms of the novel things, for example, we have done them at lubogo.org and even at sugenesuloapp.com. And I was telling you, for example, last time when we were benchmarking on the book of Islamic banking in Uganda, where you felt like it's something that is worthy, for us to talk about in terms of the future of this country. When you talk about then there's this stigmatization of ideologies and they think it's Islamization, and they lose the debate. You are a Muslim, I know, and without any shadow of doubt, but you studied in England and you know how to blend Christianity and Islamic and any other religion for that purpose in terms of as an intellectual, because you must understand that when you come to intellectualism, the debate of religion loses because now it's a question of intellectualism. So I don't know what is your message to the intellectuals of this country in terms of that.
I think it's very clear. We all have different religious affiliations, but the question is, coexistence of one another, respect one another is a tool of promoting social cohesion. For example, from Islamic point of view, Islam provides that you should only speak calmly to convey message to a person to become a Muslim or not. And Allah says so the Kafirun. If they have their religion, you have your religion. So it is better you respect them as they respect you. So you should not force anybody to be a Muslim the way nobody will force the other person to be a Christian. But you can have a discourse of different theologies, different thoughts. If you convince me, that's good. If I don't, the question we can coexist, because in all families we have Muslims, we have Protestants, we have Catholics, we have born again, we have every character.
Right.
And the question that the diversity we have makes us better.
True.
God made us in different tribes and languages to learn from one another, not to fight one another.
Right.
If we get that very clear, then we can coexist, because nobody opens up a shop and puts Muslim or Christian. When you open up a shop, the so-called diversity of tribes and regions come to my shop or come to Yellow Farm.
Right.
So that means we should respect one another, and we can live together despite our differences in ideology, our difference in affiliations. They will have political clubs.
Right.
I might be NRM, you might be FDC,
Right.
but we can coexist as together,
Right.
because we are brothers, and thus we say Uganda is a part of Africa.
Right.
We can live together. And I think any person who portrays religion on issues of enmity then has a problem.
True.
That's why I was analyzing the doctrine of terrorism, where I also discussed terrorism, that Islam is peace. The word Salama means peace. And even when you go to the church, they used to say, peace be upon you after the church.
Right.
So promoting peace within has been a canon of existence.
Right.
And when you look at also on Islamic doctrine, there is no terrorism, because Islam says if you kill one person, you are as if you are killing the entire humanity. Are you clear? But there was a lot of intellectual new colonial ideology to destroy the image of Islam.
Right.
But Islam is about peace.
Right.
And when you look about, even recently in Rwanda, I quote, President Kagame said, if I was to choose any religion, I should choose Islam. No mosque by the International Tribunal of Rwanda that was said was found that a Muslim, whether he's a Tutsi or Hutu, killed one another.
Wow.
They saw them one another as brothers.
Wow.
That is one of the legitimate free character of Islam,
Right.
that everybody is a brother.
Right.
And killing one, we are killing the entire humanity.
Lastly, Professor, to emphasize your words of unity, diversity in unity, I think the Holy Bible also says that blessed are the peacemakers. And Jesus said, turning the other cheek. And Dr. King rightly puts it that when you turn the other cheek, he didn't say that you wouldn't feel suffering, you would feel suffering, but he said it is better to go through life with a scar on a body than the scar on your soul. I want you to take me through research centers in Uganda, because that is another area that I think we have. If I'm to talk about substantive research centers in this country, I'll talk about CRB, the one by Professor Mamdan. I'll talk about maybe Huripec, the one by Professor Oloko Nyango and the Dr. Kabumba and the Dr. Zahara. And then maybe PILAC, the one by my friend Professor Mbazira. And maybe the one Center for Critical Thinking Alternative, where I belong, the one of Professor, my brother Mahiri, and Yuha, and then also Professor Afuna Adula. I would like you to tell us, is it a problem that most of these research centers have a problem in a sense that they are not funded, they are ignored by government, and maybe that's the reason why people don't seem to understand or comprehend or even respect the ideology of intellectualism?
I think that point is very clear. First and foremost, we find that Makerere being the first university in Uganda, they still have the monopoly. They get DGF fund, they have been getting money from Netherlands, they have been getting money from the government, they have MasterCard. So you find all the finances go to Makerere. That's why the Center for Intellectual Discourse or debate or writing, you have to partner with the Makerere to thrive.
Right.
And most of these are just in infancy, trying to fly, using Makerere as the benchmark. And even Makerere itself has got its own weaknesses, because as I talk, 52 courses in Makerere are pending. And Nawangu was saying it is because of the departments, the deans, the delay of the council, the senate, that at times they cause this problem. So even Makerere, being old as it is in 100 years, they are still suffering. What about universities like IU, which have been exit 30 years, universities like Guru, which are 25 years? So imagine if the old man is suffering from that discourse, then others are suffering. What should be the reason? We should now, I think, fund all other universities for research. Partnership with other universities should be emphasized, so that we have more intellectual discourse, we have more publications. Also, on issue of religiosity, we should have a think tank of Christianity. We should have a think tank of Islam, so that when we have these think tanks, the image that is taken to a normal Muslim with no intellectual capacity, to a normal Christian, will be zeroed to intellectuals. How do the intellectuals under the think tank think? That way, we should be better to live with having a think tank of Christianity, a think tank of Muslims, and then if there is any issue, we can sit together and iron out. Also with intellectualism, we should be saying we are going to discuss on maritime law, we are going to discuss on international criminal law, we are going to discuss on international arbitration, where is my PhD. And we know that these are new courses. And the old people who are the chancellors, who are the DVC, they don't know these things. And what should be done? These DVCs, vice chancellors, should understand that the millennium has changed. They should be adaptable to with the younger generation. Of some of the technology has advanced, the courses are changing. We are talking about East African community, and you find that it's only me and Nkumba that are teaching this course. We need to move with the dynamics of the world in order to be in a better legal jurisprudence.
Wonderfully said. So one thing that stands out that the professor has rightly said is that the world is changing, and we should be mindful of that. Right now, kids are doing research by way of Chat GPT and the like, and I think even before we begin victimizing or criticizing them, it's a question of perhaps putting ourselves up to that task and be able to resonate with them. The world is changing and we ought to change with it. I think what the professor rightly put is that we should not be enemies of one another. Education is here to help us. It is the breast, or if there's anything, it's the birth of a nation in almost every sphere. Name any kind of invasion, it all starts with research. Name any kind of ideology, name any kind of wonderful thing it all starts with research. So we are proud as sui generis, who is actually one of the brain thinkers of this country, to have written about 35 now low groundbreaking books. Incredibly, almost every book that we've talked about is not yet even taught in law schools, but people come to us and others insult us, others applaud us. But listen, we are much better when you make us better by critiquing us, because then we know how to learn and to be able to blend ourselves, to accommodate and be able to fashion ourselves with these trending things. Lastly, Professor, what is your message to the country generally as a scholar, a young scholar? There are young people, as I said, which perhaps you forgot to ask. People graduate, even they leave Law Development Center, they go in the field, and the best thing they do is sit back home. They don't have morale, they don't have zeal. I saw last time a news clip where they were saying a lady who had a first class in engineering from Makerere, first class in engineering, had spent 2 years without a job. How do you learn to accommodate with such scenarios?
I think before I go to Dr. Lubogo's issue, I have a book which is called International Arbitration, a Guide to Commonwealth and East Africa, which was published in San Francisco. But I'm also working on a labor law book, which will be a guide to East Africa. I think will be out in 2 months from now. So back to the Encyclopedia of Jurisprudence in Uganda, Dr. Lubogo. He has talked about students graduating and they don't have jobs. It is not in Uganda. It is a global phenomenon. In UK, in America, in Canada, many students are graduating. But what they have done, they have adapted to some jobs. So you find someone in Canada got a degree, but is able to work in a hotel, is able to work in a restaurant, is able to work in a shamba, in a factory, is able to work in a farm. The irony we have here, people assume that when you have a degree, you should put on a tie. No, a degree stands for the following. One is D stands for devotion, E stands for exemplary, G for grace, R is for resilience, if enterprising and being effective. Where there is enterprising, you can even be a graduate of law. There is no harm of starting a small business like chicken rearing. There is no harm of starting a small business of farming. There is no harm of helping your father who's doing some production. We should not assume that getting a degree means putting on a tie. No, that is a colonial mentality. Right. We should be out of the colonial mentality. That when you get a degree, you should be an entrepreneur. You should be with a lot of grace, which means grace, you should be honest. Right. Clear. When you look at the percentage of graduates, none of them, very few, have got the qualities I've mentioned, which mean a degree. Most of them are not honest, they are not enterprising, they are not punctual. Clear. Even some that were given to do what I call internship, they come at internship too late. That no firm can retain you. Right. Whenever you get such firms, it's you to market yourself. Have you marketed yourself enough? How come there are students who graduated last year, they have jobs, and you graduated 5 years, you don't? There is something you're missing. How is your CV? How do you communicate when you go out? Do you have the oral, the spoken? How can you sell yourself out? You read about a company's profile before you go for an interview. There is a lot. Most universities in Europe, they prepare for interviews, CVs, career guidance. Most times universities in Uganda, they only bother about graduation. They don't have a tracking record to find out, is the course we're delivering a value to employability? Right. Is the job we are delivering sustainable? Right. The curriculum should be reviewed on the value of the market. Right.
Excellent, excellent. And like some wise man said that certificate holders are basically what they call raw materials. And degree holders are a liability to knowledge. And master holders are generators of knowledge. And doctorate holders are propagators of knowledge. And professors are those who profess knowledge and change society. So I don't know where you fall, my friend, but I would like to thank the one and only Honorable Distinguished Professor Dr. Shadat, incredibly one of the youngest brains of this country. This country should be afraid of this gentleman because he has just begun. God bless you. Thank you for your attention. Find most of our things at lubogo.org and suegenerislawup.com. God bless you.